Maleeva to serve. First set. Ready, play. Love 15.
Rather surprised backhand return winner from Mrs. Lloyd. The server not prepared for the return.
Out. 15 all.
Miss Maleeva winning that 10-stroke rally. I have a feeling this match is going to contain a lot of very strong baseline rallies.
And
number 4 seed is Maleeva, who will no doubt attempt to use that ploy quite a bit, the drop shot bringing the opponent forward, and I think Mrs. Lloyd may well do the same against her opponent.
all.
So for the second time, the Romanians' forehand cross-court pass, very effective. Bulgarian, I beg your pardon.
Game, Miss Maleeva. First game.
So Mrs. Lloyd's ploy there of winning the toss and decided to receive, as many players do these days, hoping before the opponent is really warmed up to break the serve, but it didn't work. No strangers to each other, the two ladies on court today. They've played 7 times. And Mrs. Lloyd has a 6-1 lead. They first met way back in 1983 in the US Open, and the last time, the French Open last year. Mrs. Lloyd, as I say, leading 6-1, and that defeat was last year the Italian Open final at Perugia, when Miss Maleeva won 6-3, 6-3. That was her first big, important tournament victory, but very soon afterwards, Mrs. Lloyd had her revenge in the French Open.
Time.
In fact, the following week, the 4th round, winning 3-6, 6-3, 6-2. So the last 2 matches have certainly been interesting in view of today's final.
Mrs. Evert Lloyd to serve. 15 love. Out. 30 love. Out. 40, 30, 15.
Umpires are so unused to seeing errors come from Mrs. Lloyd's racket, they're inclined to forget that she makes mistakes sometimes. Yes, very good play.
All.
Third time in the match that the drop shot ploy has been successful, and such a good volleying pass there by the young player. Yes.
40, 30.
I don't think Mrs. Lloyd will hesitate if she gets a chance off a half-court ball to play a really raking shot into the corner. I don't think she'll neglect to come in as she did then. Her volleying is much better than many people think.
Deuce.
So already we're seeing much more enterprise, I think, in this match than was anticipated. Much more variety of play. The call of fault surprises the server. Just out. A little unlucky.
Advantage, Mrs. Lloyd.
There's the man who called it, and it was a very good call, just a little unlucky. Bogle and Gill played that match, that rally really very well.
Game, Mrs. Lloyd. One game all.
So the seeded #1 player, world ranking #2, Mrs. Lloyd, level pegging with the seeded #4 player and the world's #10.
15 love. 30, love. Thirty, 15. All.
Punishing rally that for both players, but what a beautifully angled smash by Mrs. Lloyd from well behind the service line.
.30.
Rather surprising to see Mrs. Lloyd attempt the backhand down the line over the high part of the net there. That ball was very, very low indeed, and she was playing a lifted backhand.
Deuce.
It's the second double fought, and that one on game point.
Advantage, Miss Maleeva. Game, Miss Maleeva. Miss Maleeva leads by 2-1.
Just thinking, Anne, in that game, a couple of rather surprising errors from Mrs. Lloyd. The attempt down the line off a very difficult ball, and that rather loose backhand return of serve there.
Yes, but I think she has been making a few unforced errors during the week. I think that it is the end of a long season, and also she knows that Manuela Maleeva is going to play solidly from the baseline, and therefore Chrissy has to take some chances. She was working on that approach shot a little bit this morning with her husband John. They were practicing for half an hour, and I know that Chrissy must feel that she has to break up the rhythm of her opponent, so therefore she has to take a few risks. Just as you were saying yesterday, I think that Annabelle Croft should have been in a similar frame of mind. if you're going to struggle in one particular pattern of the match, then
Time.
you have to make an effort to change it. And certainly Chrissy has all the experience behind her and knows what is needed. And talking of experience, I think Manuela Maleeva at 18 is certainly thinking very hard today. She's not overawed by her opponent. She's playing the ball and playing it very well so far. 1-2, first set.
Out. 15 love.
And that's a beautiful stroke. That's a really magnificent stroke.
15 all.
And here Manuela really covering the court. Chrissy comes in on her favourite slice down the line, but Manuela chips it down the line, picks the right spot and zoomed it very close.
Thirty 15. Thirty all.
It's a fine service.
40-30.
Last 12 months, the American service has improved a great deal. That one came through off the floor very fast. Not by any means a bad bounce. That was great wrist work.
Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. Two games all.
2-all in the first set of this best-of-3 set final. Interesting that the younger player is standing nearer to the baseline under pressure of length. Mrs. Lloyd noted, of course, for her exceptional quality of controlling length, but her opponent standing in against it.
First service. Love 15.
I think that's perhaps the loosest forehand that this young lady has played all week. 3/4 length ball, waist high, a real sitter for her, and she makes such a bad error as that.
Love 30.
Some wonderful low trajectory driving there. The ball never much more than about 6 to 9 inches above the top of the net.
Love 40.
So the first time that she's missed the cross-court pass, but a very good high drive back-end volley from the number 1 seed. 3 break points.
Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. Mrs. Evert Lloyd leads by 3 games to 2.
And Manuela there making 3 forehand errors that she hasn't made so far, as many as that in this tournament. But of course she is under a lot of pressure. There are many balls coming back from Chris Evert Lloyd racket. But Manuela at 18, I've noticed today how well she's playing the ball. She's not worrying about the fact that Chrissy is such a strong opponent. She's trying hard to outmaneuver her with the drop shot and the lob and the passing shot. But of course this takes time. She has to let the rally develop and wait for a slightly shorter ball before she can make her move. And I think in so doing sometimes tends to press a little bit hard. Chrissy has played several baseliners in this tournament and hasn't seemed particularly at home against them. She struggled in the first set in the first round against Petra Huber and also in the next match that she played. But she had that very long match with Katarina Lindqvist the other night, and that's played her well into this tournament. She's in full control of all her strokes, as is customary, as we've come to expect. 3-2 with a break.
Love.
And the young lady not aware, I don't think, that Mrs. Lloyd changed that forehand shot. It became quite a slice on the forehand, which affects the bounce a little, of course.
Love.
I'm not afraid to try the drop shot. I'm waiting to see Mrs. Lloyd employ one.
.30-15.
I wonder if Mrs. Lloyd may have to change that backhand down the line approach when she's drawn out there. And once
40-15.
once again, the slice forehand from Mrs. Lloyd proving very effective.
Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. Mrs. Evert Lloyd leads by 4 games to 2.
So with a run of 3 games has come from 1-2 behind, and of course that convincing service game, breaking serve to love. Two-4, first set. Yes.
Love 15.
Well, Mrs. Lloyd, I don't think was surprised to see her opponent come in behind the serve. At least she was quite ready for the return.
Love 30. (15-30).
Well, she's only won 1 out of the last 12 points until she played that lovely cross-court volley.
(15-40).
What a classic backhand down the line there, under the severest possible pressure to Mrs. Lloyd. Great rally.
(30-40).
Rather surprise winner there. Don't think anybody expected that one to be a half-court, cross-court pass.
Deuce.
Now that's the shot I think that Mrs. Lloyd may have to avoid, going down the line when she's drawn out to the backhand sideline, always going down the line. She's been past, she's in fact only got away with 1 attempt on that approach shot.
Advantage, Miss Maleeva. Game, Miss Maleeva. Mrs. Evert Lloyd leads by 4 games to 3.
And that must be a heartwarming game for the Bulgarian. She was 2 break points down, 15-14. She played some spirited tennis there to recover that game.
Well, she refuses to get dejected, doesn't she, Dan? She had one bad game, but otherwise I think she's performed very creditably. And I think tactically she's being very sharp. She's using the drop shot as in that very last point. It was a beautiful drop shot. And also she's using the drop shot as another weapon to bring her opponent into the net, as we saw at 30-40. The serve has improved a lot of Manuela's over the last couple of years. It's still not ace-type quality, but it's very consistent and deep. And she's not afraid to swap punches with Chrissy, nor is she afraid to break up the rhythm with the slower drive. Chrissy really thumped that one down the line, but Manuela was very, very quickly across. It's a punishing rally. And here goes Chrissy to the net, trying to shorten it a little bit, but Manuela sees her coming, and that pass dropped well inside the service line. And here, I think, is the brains behind this. The mother, Yulia Berberian, on the right of your picture, and Katerina, the sister, who is 16, who plays on the circuit and lost in the first round to Annabelle Croft.
Hmm.
15 love.
That's a beautiful shot.
And look at this for courage. Manuela suddenly deciding she's going to go to the net, anticipating where the Lloyd backhand was going, and plays a superb stop volley.
(30-15).
Some real pressure there that this 18-year-old had to stand up against, but she does play awfully well against Mrs. Lloyd's great stroke, that backhand down the line. No player this week has played it better.
40-15.
And that's the third time in the match where she has completely mistimed a heavy sliced ball. That backhand this time, keeping the ball much lower and checking the ball slightly. Really badly timed stroke there, 40-15.
Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. Mrs. Evert Lloyd leads by 5 games to 3.
So here's a real test for the number 4 seed. There's a fine rally.
And here's Chrissy showing
Love
just how
15.
hard she worked. She's got to the net, and a superb lob from Manuela forces her back, but Chrissy can play that shot with her back to the net just as accurately. And there she comes in to get the volley.
Oh. 15 all.
Ace.
$30-15.
First of the match. Yes.
$40-15.
Very low ball, but she bent her knees beautifully, and that was a well-controlled shot.
First service. Game, Miss Maleeva. New balls, please. Mrs. Evert Lloyd leads by 5 games to 4.
And I can't help thinking, Anne, that most people around the court here, and most of us, are surprised at not the quality of the tennis, but the variety of the tennis. I mean, we were all talking about this is going to be a match of long, determined, exhausting rallies. In fact, we're seeing a great deal of variety.
Well, I think both players have a lot of respect for each other, and they both play very, very similar games. But neither of them really want to spend all day out there, so they're both trying very hard to break up the rhythm of their opponents. And Chrissy is a seasoned campaigner, and I think the one asset, as you've pointed out, that she really is disguising her heavily sliced shot. The court takes a lot of spin. Chrissy knows this, and she's really a seasoned campaigner, isn't she? As soon as she's got an ace up her sleeve, she just plays it rarely on the very big points, the points that she really wants. But on the other hand, Manuela stuck to her guns very, very well indeed. She's missed a few drop shots, but it hasn't deterred her. She's gone on with her plan of campaign, which I'm sure she discussed well with her mother beforehand. But Chrissy still has the slight advantage of having a break in hand. 5-4, first set, and new balls.
Love 15.
Oh, I see.
Love 30.
Oh, that's an extraordinary error on such an important point.
Fifteen 30. Fifteen 40.
There was a certain hesitancy about the player there. I didn't really think she was going to follow that one in at all. I don't think she meant to herself. 2 break points.
Net.
Well, she's got away with it this time.
Thirty 40.
Just that little extra accuracy down the line when you made the approach gave her the chance to volley.
Net.
Deuce.
And Miss Maleeva missed a great chance there. Mrs. Lloyd's second service barely reached the halfway up the service court. Really should have been punished.
Advantage, Miss Maleeva.
So break point for the 3rd time.
Game Miss Maleeva, 5 games all.
And Mrs. Lloyd, I think, must quickly get rid of that game from her mind. She mustn't let that haunt her. It's one of the worst games in a big match that I've seen her play. Hesitating and changing her mind, extraordinary. Yes.
Love 15.
Oh, that's a glorious stroke.
15 all.
Can't get much more accurate than that.
$15.30.
Quick reaction there by Mrs. Lloyd. Nice little net cord, that.
It's a very interesting point. Yeah.
15-14. Out. Ah. 30-14. First service.
Well-timed approach.
Mrs. Evert Lloyd leads by 6 games to 5.
That was a very, very well-timed approach, Anne, wasn't it?
Well,
Waiting
in that last point, Chrissy noticeably took the ball much earlier. You could see that she was headed netward if she got an opportunity, and she forced it out of her with a second ground stroke, and in she was like a knife and put away the volley. Seems to be a little discussion between Chris and the umpire now discussing the same problem, one assumes, with Manuela. And here at 15:30, I think, is where Manuela lost her opportunity in this game. She plays this superb drop shot because he wasn't going in that direction at all. And it says a lot for her agility that she got there at all. But Manuela surely should have volleyed that. The passing shot perhaps a little bit unlucky because it touched the top of the net and made it rather easier for Chrissy than it might otherwise have been. But now Manuela has lost her serve again and is facing a 6-5 deficit. Mrs. Lloyd serving for the set.
15 love.
Smack on the line, that backhand.
Out. 30 love. Love.
So, 3 set points.
$40-15.
Double fault on set point. It's her first in the set.
$40-30.
That's the set.
Game and first set to Mrs. Evert Lloyd by 7 games to 5.
And a highly interesting,
Second set.
very highly interesting first
Miss
set there
Maleeva to serve.
in 53 minutes.
$15 love. $30 love. $40 love. Game, Miss Maleeva. First game, second set. First set, Mrs. Evert Lloyd.
I must say, Miss Maleeva has hit some lovely passes from that deep forehand corner.
Yes, and the majority of them have gone cross-court, haven't they, which Chris hasn't been able to anticipate, or alternatively, they've just been that little bit too good. But I think they're an interesting family, aren't they, with the mother, the coach, and the 16-year-old Katerina Maleeva, who beat Helena Sukova last week couple of weeks ago in the Federation Cup. And then there's Magdalena, who's 10, coming along, who is also the under-12 champion in Bulgaria. So I think the mother has done very, very well to keep the three of them going and do all the travelling. I think as soon as she gets home from looking after one of the daughters, she's off with the other.
Time.
Father, too, has an athletic background, does he not?
Yes, he plays basketball, I believe, in the Olympics a few years ago.
Mrs. Evert Lloyd to serve.
Love one, second set.
Love 15. Fifteen all.
That's liable to happen, of course, if the drop shot isn't properly controlled. Nervous.
30-15.
Net.
First service. All.
I must say that looked a rather tired second service. So second in the match.
Forty 30.
Just out.
Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd.
Mrs. Evert Lloyd breathed a sigh of relief there on the baseline as that volley went into the net.
One game all.
But what a wonderful raking forehand into the Lloyd backhand corner. Perhaps a little overexcited when she played that volley in.
Yes, possibly so.
15 love. Love.
Well, the ball was just short enough to draw Mrs. Lloyd into the volleying position, but I don't think she enjoyed going there.
Thirty 15.
Just out.
40 15.
Very clever shot there that Mrs. Lloyd played to restore her court position, but the opponent's backhand down the line was too accurate.
Forty 30.
That's quite an incredible return in.
Yes, indeed it was, Dan.
Game Miss Maleeva. Miss Maleeva leads by
Manuela
2 games to
looping
1.
the ball as she'd been doing earlier in
First
this
set,
rally, and
Mrs.
look
Evert.
how she scurries across the court to get that forehand cross court. It's been working so well, that forehand cross court for Manuela, but that was really an extraordinary shot. She looks surprised herself, doesn't she? Take her a minute or two, I think, to recover her breath, but she's extremely fit. She works very, very hard, trains hard, practices hard.
And I'm just thinking, have we got another girl on the circuit who moves as well as this girl or as fast as this girl?
I don't think we have, Dan. I think, as I say, she works very, very hard from the baseline. I think that it's still very predetermined, her sallies to the net. It's not an instinctive approach that she makes on the whole.
Time.
She does get herself into trouble. But certainly across the baseline, she moves very, very quickly indeed.
Love 15. Love 30.
Mrs. Lloyd forced to play a backhand half-volley lob, but didn't do it too well. Oh, that's
15-30.
That's too difficult from well outside the baseline. I think a drop shot from there.
$15-40.
And that error after such a fine service, such an accurate service that brought the weak reply.
Game is Maleeva. Miss Maleeva leads by 3-1.
So the tenacious youngster here getting her due rewards. Mrs. Lloyd playing one or two rather slack shots there.
Love 15. $15 all. $30-15. $30 all.
3-1, 30 all, second set.
$30-40.
That's her third double fault, and it gives her opponent break point.
Deuce.
Just called out.
Advantage, Miss Maleeva.
And Mrs. Lloyd very, very slow, anticipating that one and in getting to it.
Deuce.
And that's the most determined shot that Mrs. Lloyd has played in this particular game.
Advantage, Mrs. Evert Lloyd.
Mrs. Evert Lloyd getting the benefit of the immaculate length there, and it gives her her second break point in this game. It's out, over sliced. Deuce. Mrs. Lloyd attempting, of course, to play that slice shot, but also faded it away, and the ball swerved quite a bit out. Deuce.
Advantage, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. First service. Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. Miss Maleeva leads by 3-2, second set. First set, Mrs. Evert Lloyd.
Well, the longest game of the match, that, 3 deuces, and I think Mrs. Lloyd must have been very relieved to see that last shot of her opponent's just go out. She didn't have to work hard for that point. But Anne, rather interesting that both players, I think, feeling the tension a bit now.
The tension and the pace, I think. Chris, I think, reaped the benefit of earlier good work in that game. She was really running her younger opponent from side to side in the last 4 or 5 points, and eventually reaped the reward of the easier miss in the last point. But it's been quite a long match already, and I'm sure that Chris Lloyd won't want to see this second set slip away. She had to work so hard, 7-5 and 53 minutes for the first set.
You take your places quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
And it's a final, Davy, which is very much all on the pink in the Pretty Potty Classic. The rather salmon pink of the #1 seed, Chris Evert Lloyd of the United States, leads the rather paler pink of Manuela Maleeva of Bulgaria, the #4 seed, by a set to love. We're in the 6th game of the second set, and Mrs. Lloyd has just broken back, having lost her service in the previous game. The brief story of the first set: Manuela Maleeva started the better, but the first break went to Chris Lloyd. She led 3-2. It was levelled at 5-all, but then Mrs. Lloyd went away from there to take the first set at 7-5. As I said, we're in the 6th game of the second set, and watching it from the commentary box with Mrs. Lloyd leading 15-love are Anne Jones and Dan Maskell.
15-all.
Yeah, 15-all.
So the last 2 points in this 6th game have been won by smashes. Each lady has produced a classic overhead shot, 15-all. 15-all. And 2-3.
(30-15).
Yes, she was unlucky there. That was a well-disguised lob. Mrs. Lloyd was committed to going forward. She really couldn't have turned and played that one. Just about an inch out. 30-15.
First service.
Net.
First service.
Now.
40-15.
And rather very reminiscent of many we've had in the match so far. Low driving, very low trajectory, getting near the lines, but we've had a great deal of variety of play too, with drop shots and lobs and volleys. 40-15. That's a winner.
Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd, 3 games all.
So from 1-3 in the second set, Mrs. Lloyd looking at one time rather slow about the court and losing her grip and concentration, has pulled herself together here with the break of serve to make it 2-3, and now winning her own serve to 15. So 3-all, second set, having won the first set 7-5.
Love 15. Love 30.
And the topspin off the backhand didn't carry that net ball over. I thought it was going to just roll over, but no.
Mm. 15-30.
It's only the second time in the match that the server has come in behind her serve. In the first set, she got away with it. Mrs. Lloyd rather unexpectedly hitting what I thought was rather bad forehand return there, then.
Net.
First service.
Net.
Very nearly a double
Second
fault.
service.
Mrs. Lloyd going to threaten the second serve. I think they'll ask for a let. No?
Let.
Yes, absolutely right. This is that the trophy that's gone down?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well,
We replay the point.
absolutely.
First service.
Played right through. First service.
Fifteen 40.
So at 3-all, this and 15-40, this needs some good serving and good play. Oh.
30-40.
So the lady in your picture well rewarded there for her industry and quickness about the court. Played with great resource, I thought, in that rally. She's put it out.
Deuce.
And I think that's rather unforgivable there. Mrs. Lloyd really must have seen that coming, seconds before it was played. And certainly lost control of the cross-court pass.
Advantage, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. Mrs. Evert Lloyd leads by 4-3, second set, and by 1 set to love.
Interesting, I thought, there, and just when Miss Maleeva was really timing the ball well, swinging well, moving freely. Suddenly she plays one as badly as that overhit backhand there.
Yes, but I think that the court takes a lot of spin, and I think that Chris is saving that very heavily sliced shot for the point that she really, really desperately needs. And Manuela sees it coming a little bit more now than she did earlier on in the match. But again, Chris gets the reward on the next one, because the next time she floats it or top spins it, and Manuela is forced to mistime it. Chris is certainly a shrewd campaigner. She seizes on every opportunity to make the most of her game. And I was a little surprised in that game that at 15:40 she didn't make the most of that opportunity. I thought that the smash was difficult, but I felt that she could have made it, and certainly the cross-court pass she could have made. I think the tension is very much there at the moment.
What I find interesting, of course, Anne is one lady in the evening of her career playing against the girl who is on the threshold of what is, I think, going to be a great one. And coming from a country where they've produced all the great players in America, in a country, Bulgaria, there, where really they've hardly ever had a player of top class.
Love 15. Love 30. Ah. 15-30.
Net.
First service.
Out.
30 all.
And once again, Mrs. Lloyd throwing in the middle of that rally a very heavily sliced shot, but her opponent hitting the backhand rather well off it, but eventually losing the rally. The change of pace has been quite a disconcerting factor for the younger player. 30 all. And Maleeva really stepping up the pace there, hitting the ball nearer the top of the bounce. A lot of weight of shot there. Break point.
Deuce.
4-3 deuce, second set. And that's a great lob volley. That's a beautiful shot. Well, just have a look at this. There's the drop shot. The opponent is brought in, she doesn't do enough with it, and up comes the lob volley, one of the most difficult shots in the game, and not an inch wasted there by Mrs. Lloyd, just out of reach of the opponent. One of the best shots of the match that we've seen, I think. Advantage server. Oh, that's a gem.
Yes.
Interesting play there by Maleeva, running out, looking as though she wasn't really going to reach the ball, and suddenly produces a very unexpected angle like that. Juice?
Advantage, Mrs. Evert Lloyd.
And for the third time in this match, Mrs. Evert Lloyd has shown that when the ball is shoulder high, a high bounce like that, she's got really a rather, not a new shot, but one she rarely uses, a lovely drive off the shoulder high ball, that.
Net.
First service.
Net.
Second service.
Just done.
Game, Mrs. Evert Lloyd. New balls, please.
So Mrs. Lloyd leading
Mrs. Evert Lloyd leads by 5 games to 3.
in the second set, having won 4 games in a row, 2 breaks of service, to come from 1-3 behind. And one feels she's having to struggle a bit with her own game. She's making 1 or 2 errors that are not normal with her, and she's really had to use the champion's experience and will to hold on to this game, I think. And her younger opponent has made 1 or 2 inexperienced errors that have been very helpful for Mrs. Lloyd. So Miss Maleeva serving now at 3-5 to stay in this final.
$15 love. $15 all. $15-30.
That's her 4th double fault. That's a glorious drive volley.
(15-40).
So, 2 match points. It's out.
Game, set, and match.
Well done.
Evert Lloyd. Mrs. Lloyd wins by 2 sets to love, 7-5, 6-3.
In an hour and 37 minutes, and so for the third time, Mrs. Lloyd wins this tournament at Brighton, where she has been twice the runner-up and has played here 6 times out of the 8 that it's been held. And it really was a bit of a struggle, I felt, Anne, for Mrs. Lloyd, particularly in the middle of the second set.
Yes, I feel that at 1-3 down, Manuela missed an opportunity of continuing to attack with her drop shots, but was unable to capitalise on that, and also the earlier driving volleys that she was doing, taking the ball earlier, pressing Chrissy. She just was unable, through lack of experience, to capitalise on it.
And she really is an amazing lady, Chris Evert Lloyd. That's her 9th title of the year. So the championship at Brighton, the Pretty Polly Classic, decided. Let's go back to a battle which still continues at the Hexagon at Reading between the world champion Dennis Taylor and, of course, Steve Davis. Let's rejoin David Vine.
Manuela Maleeva.
So Miss Maleeva goes forward to receive the condolences, perhaps, from Peter Austin, the managing director of Pretty Polly.
And Manuela receives a check for $16,000.
Or shall we say a check for
And the
11,255
Pretty Polly
pounds.
Classic champion, Chris Evert Lloyd.
Well, now here comes the lady who has delighted us all through the years. The trophy from Peter Austin of Pretty Polly, the managing director, who's been here all week, and she takes a cheque for £22,500. But for her, I think,
And along with the trophy
and a
goes
kiss
a
for
check
George Henman there, the ever popular
$32,000.
tournament director. And Chris Lloyd, I think, rather glad to have got this one over and done with. She had a rather difficult match against Miss Lindqvist of Sweden in the semi-final, where she really had to play at her best against a player who played so magnificently. So the lady here with the trophy, 17 Grand Slam singles championships she's won, 6 at Wimbledon, 6 in France, Australia.
Ladies and gentlemen, whilst the gentlemen of the press are having their moment, we would like to ask Manuela Maleeva, on her very first visit to Brighton, and a very popular visit it's been as far as Brighton public are concerned, to say a word.
First of all, I would like to thank Patrick Austin from Pretty Polly for putting that nice tournament. This is my first time here, and I really enjoyed. I would like to thank Mr. and Mrs. and Miss Hendon for helping with this tournament. I would like to thank Chris for playing such a good match, and for all the people that came here to watch us. And I hope that I will be back next year. Thank you.
It's our pleasure to say, Chris Evert Lloyd, you are the Brighton champion, and for the very first time, Pretty Polly's own champion.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick Austin and Pretty Polly for sponsoring it this year. I hope you enjoyed the tournament, and I hope that you continue to be a sponsor throughout the years. I'd also like to congratulate Manuela because she had a great tournament, reaching the final. She played really well, yesterday against Joe, and her English is much, much better than my Spanish. So, but she's really an up-and-coming. Well, she's not that young. She came on the scene when she was about 14, and now I think she's 18 or 19. So she's really up and coming. And I always look at a draw and I see where Manuela is before I make any assumptions as to whether my draw is good, because she's always given me so many tough matches, and I really don't enjoy playing her because she's so tough. So I'd like to congratulate her and wish her luck. And also the Hendon family, George and Eileen and Nola. I think Nola, the way she does the introductions, she belongs on the stage with that voice. She does a great job. And everyone here connected with the tournament. I always enjoy coming back here. I'd like to thank my family up there, John and the Lloyds, for supporting me. And I think the most important thing is to thank all of you, because without you, women's tennis certainly wouldn't be where it is now at such a high stature. So thank you for supporting us, and please come back next year. Thank you.
Manuela Maleeva and Chris Evert Lloyd.
No, no.